Greetings, everyone. This meeting of the Shelton Metropolitan Parks District is now called to order. And the first item is if anyone has signed up for public comment. Okay. There is no consent agenda today, but we do have a business agenda, and Finance Director Nola Von Nudeg will present the 2018 preliminary Shelton Metropolitan Parks District budget. Thank you, Nola.
Thank you, Commissioners. What you have in your packet there is the initial 2018 proposed budget for Shelton Metropolitan Park District. You'll see in the budget summary document, we have the 2016 actuals, including beginning balances, revenue, total resources, expenditures, and ending balances. We have 2017 budgeted, 2017 projected, and 2018 total proposed. The Metropolitan Park District is financially stable. We do have some initial tax revenue information from the assessor. I'm still going to be contacting them to verify. Usually we will get some updates to those numbers in November, so the numbers you have in front of you are not yet final. But we will be bringing you updated final numbers for the levy certification later in November. Everything there is pretty stable. Overall property values within the city have increased about 8%. That is good. That, however, does not mean that the revenue that we collect in property taxes goes up 8%. Because of the 1% tax limitation factor, the tax revenue would only go up 1%. But it is stable. So we'll be bringing you more detailed numbers on that probably next week or the week after. And next week I think we have our first public hearing scheduled. Any questions on that so far?
Do either of the other commissioners have questions?
No, but I like those numbers.
Yeah. It looks like, so if I'm reading this correct, that we're proposing that their budget can move up from the 194 up to the 208, which is an extra like $16,000, $17,000. Is that so? They're looking at that added income. And has Mark already got that all figured out what he wants to spend that on?
He probably does.
It's a wish list.
Okay, well, I think that there are probably some ongoing maintenance things that have been deferred over the last few years, so it'll be exciting to have fully funded parks again as we're working towards that. So thank you very much. There's no action agenda. Ryan Wheaton, do you have an administration report? Okay, thank you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I do love it.
Yes, you may.
I'm sorry. I do love how I can understand this. Thank you
Good.
very much.
Good, I'm glad it makes sense.
Very understandable.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, there will be a special Shelton Metropolitan Parks District meeting on Monday, November 6th, 2017 at 6 p.m. And I hope you'll all attend. Thank you. And this meeting is adjourned.
At this time, I would like to call to order our regular scheduled City Commission study session. So the first item on our agenda is to let our Public Works Director, Craig Gregory, give us a Employee of the Month award.
I would like to bring up Quentin Leppert. I just see that he just loves this. I will tell you that I was going to spring this on him at this meeting, but I let him know about an hour ago so he didn't run off on me. But I am happy to recognize Clinton as the October Employee of the Month. Clinton has been an employee with the City of Shelton, dedicated and loyal employee. Oh, he's getting teary now. For almost 30 years now.
Wow.
He has watched over our projects out in the field as the inspector engineer, out in the field looking after every infrastructure project we have had basically over the last 30 years. But most recently, what really has earned my respect from Clinton is we haven't had a lot of projects going on, so he has been stuck in the office where he is not used to being and isn't necessarily comfortable with that, but has stepped outside the box over the last 9 months and took on as the lead the redesign of Sewer Basin 3 to make sure that that project would go off seamlessly when we do get to construction in that project, and found quite a few errors within that, and basically redesigned that with the help of Bob Tauser, our city engineer, and Logan Brady also, but Clinton was the lead on that and took that on and just did a fabulous job at it, most likely saving the city hundreds of thousands of dollars within that project. So just want to say thank you so much for your service.
Did you want to say something? You didn't want to do anything?
Oh, I would like to say something. Clint is embarrassed. I would just like to say that years ago when I worked for the city in the planning and development department, Clint helped me so much and taught me so much, and I really appreciate that. I wouldn't say he was always especially patient, but but he was a big help, and I really appreciate those lessons that you gave me, Clint. Thank you.
All right, next we are going to have the third quarter lodging tax report presented to us by Heidi, and she is the representing the Chamber of Commerce.
All right, good afternoon. On behalf of the Shelton-Mason County Chamber of Commerce, I'm happy to bring to you this third quarter lodging tax report. Just to hit some of the highlights, our Facebook page, which is a way that we get out a lot of information about what's happening in Mason County and Shelton, continues to grow. We've got more than 2,000 fans, and what is really exciting is that the users that are interacting with our Facebook page continue to grow in our neighboring areas. We continue to see Olympia and Lacey grow. Last quarter, they were at about 8,000 interactions with our Facebook page. Now that's risen to 11,500 and almost 11,000 respectively. So it's nice to see our neighbors are paying attention to what's happening in Shelton and Mason County and interacting and responding and liking what's happening here. So as you can see, I've went ahead and put the top 3 posts. Our top post for third quarter was about the passing of Kathy Beimer. She was an amazing woman and force in our community, and through her work with Shelton Cinemas, made a positive impact on many of our youth's lives and nonprofits as well. Second most popular was the post of the Smoke and Moe's ribbon cutting, which was the outdoor cafe seating area, which you're all familiar with since Public Works and the city was instrumental in helping that open. And then the third most popular post was about Karen Shade, who's a chamber board member. She received a client development award and gathered almost 9,000 impressions for that post as well. Visitor counts continue to increase. Last year was a banner year for Olympic National Park, and as such we saw a lot of numbers, increasing numbers in our 3 visitor information centers, so the Caboose Chamber office and then our Hoodsport office. We continue to see that increase, particularly July. We were up about 12% for that month. So it's exciting to see that those numbers continue to increase. Our phone calls continue to decrease year over year. What we found is that a lot of the inquiries are coming via email, or even Facebook questions as far as what's to do here and what's happening. Lastly, our website and calendar. We received about 10,000 page views. Our most popular page was our online event calendar. And our second most popular was for the employment page. One of the most well-attended third quarter events was the Chamber's Business Expo in Bight of Mason County, which for the second year was downtown on the south side of Railroad, and then second, third, and fourth streets were closed between Coda and Railroad. It was the best turnout that we'd had to date. We do have plans to expand next year's event. We're hoping to move that to a Friday, have a portion of it open later, do a street dance, and possibly shut down Railroad to do so. So I was able to do that when I was a high schooler growing up here, and it was really exciting to go to the street dances and be part of the community and have such a fun event. So we're looking to kind of meld those two different events together. So that's it for my report. Do you have any questions?
Questions or comments?
Good report again. Thank you.
I have one, I don't understand this exactly, but on the Facebook followers part there, Shelton has 94, almost 95,000, okay?
So this
how does
isn't.
Seattle's got 6, so there must be
So
something.
this is for for the Chamber Facebook page. So as we're sharing our members' posts and community events and such, these are the people that are interacting with those posts. So say that they like a post, that they say they're going to go to an event, that they share it with a friend. These are the unique users that are interacting with our posts. So while our Facebook page has 2,000 actual followers, there was 94,000 people that interacted with our posts in some way, shape, or form during that time.
But
in
Seattle
Mason
had
County.
6,000?
What's that?
Seattle had 6,000?
Seattle had 6,000. So wherever their Facebook page, so like mine shows that where I'm from, Shelton, and so if I click on something, then it's going to show that a Shelton person has interacted with that post. Now, my friend in Seattle, if she clicks that she likes it, then she's going to be one of those 6,000 people that says that there's a person that lives in Seattle that's interacting with it.
I understand.
People coming from that town.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh.
People who live in that area.
Okay, that makes sense to
Yeah.
me, yes. The conversation is about Shelton.
Well, they're interacting with the posts that the Chamber page is making.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next is our weekly commission reports, and so Commissioner Moore.
Actually, I have a pretty light week this week. I have a number of meetings with private citizens, and other than that, there are no scheduled commission meetings.
Okay.
So,
Commissioner McDowell?
And my week is pretty free also for this week, so.
Okay. And I will have a staff briefing on Tuesday. Other than something, if there's an emergency that pops up, we got to answer to those. But it is the last week of the month. So that completes our weekly commission reports. And now is general public comment period. And Jamie, you can be in charge of that.
All right, thank you. We have Ronnie Martin.
How you doing?
Good.
Name's Ronnie Martin. I'm with Lions Clubs International. I am actually the lead consultant for the United States. We're putting a new club here in Sheldon. And what we're about is we've changed a lot. We're 100 years old this last year. But Lions is not about going to meetings anymore. We're about community service. And so, Parks Department, we will help with things like grants up to $100,000 to put in splash pads or walk paths or anything you need to get ADA acceptable. We now do things for hunger. We now work on diabetes education. We actually will help with the new YMCA that you are trying to get as far as help build it. We've changed, but we're not about the meetings. We're about just getting the job done. We don't do the old spaghetti dinners no more. We don't.
I like those spaghetti dinners, but that's all right.
Well, here's what we've done. We partner with our restaurants instead. Why compete with them? So what we were actually voted by the Financial Times as the #1 organization in the world to partner with. So we partner with them. Roosters joined today. And the deal is the club will do a fundraiser for $10. You get a cheeseburger and a drink. He gets $5, we get $5, everybody wins. Why take money out of a business's pocket?
Good idea.
So we've changed our attitude. And you all have applications in front of you. It's $35 to join. The dues are $6 a month. It's not about going to a meeting. It's about helping when you can. And we ask the city to get involved because I need your feedback as to what you need. Clubs don't know unless you tell us. Everyone thinks you tax them and you have all the money in the world. I know better. So we're here to help. We're going to stay till the end of the meeting for anyone who has any questions in the audience or from the council. Okay?
Fabulous, thank you.
Do you have, I saw this flyer right here, and so who is this person? Is this a local person?
That is a lady out of Chicago.
Oh, thought I recognized her, but probably not.
There's a whole lot from this area.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Do you have a kind of a location at all?
Actually, we don't do buildings because it costs money. We'd rather use our money to help in this town.
Right.
So our first meeting is actually Thursday at the school district. We were offered that location,
All right.
and the superintendent of schools joined.
Okay.
What time on Thursday?
It's be at 12 noon, and we're providing lunch.
Lunch?
Uh-huh.
I
We don't like making that too public.
The Lions is sounding
No.
more attractive to me every minute
That's on
now.
my calendar now.
So now, the location is at the high school.
There it is.
Is it right there? Maybe this is
Oh,
one of my agenda
okay.
items I'd like to add on to this one right now. Well, it'd be good time to come and meet the people, so,
And that's all we ask. I mean,
yeah.
we just want to make a difference.
School district office.
Office, thank you.
I see. Thank
That's
you.
down here.
I'm not from here. I'm actually from Texas where it flooded. So
I thought I've
I'm
known you my whole life.
head
Do
of
we
the
do
department.
RSVP on this, or do we just?
You don't need to. No,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, well, we
Anything else?
greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you. And I take cash, check, or credit card.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, well, that's great.
And what is your name? Ronnie. Okay, this is exciting
Yeah.
to think of all the stuff that you will be doing and you have done. So thank you very much. That is cool.
All right, next.
All right, we have Lisa Renfro.
Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to get a letter in the newspaper, in the journal, but he was on vacation, so if it does get posted, it's nothing against anyone. I think Ryan is doing an excellent job. It's just the way that they have made the rules that puts everyone in an imposition, I think, and how it becomes compatible and very competitive. And I was hoping that everyone would be more, treat each other and appreciate each other's gifts and talents and work together as a team instead of constantly creating arguments, and that's very uncomfortable. So it's like a dog in an invisible fence that it can't protect its environment, so every time it keeps getting stung because it's doing its job, it can become more defensive. And I think in regard, this is similar. People cannot say what they need to say, or when they try to say something, it becomes an argument and then things don't get really clarified. So I think the main issue is that the problem is that the mayor, whoever it is now or then, is not going to be able to be voted in. And then the mayor cannot actually vote on any issues. So therefore, that's a little unfair. I think that's what the mayor was trying to elaborate on, fairness. And the law is not fair, of course, but I think it would be fair if all the people got to vote on all the types of government council forms. And that would have been a fair issue to put on the ballot instead of just one, because I don't think the staff and the administration should be deciding which type of council should be put on the ballot without all the pros and all the cons put in with all the information. And I don't think it's fair that people can speak or not speak depending on if it's on the ballot yet or if it's not on the ballot yet. Because if you all remember, and I remember that Tracy had said that this new proposed government with the council manager is less corrupt than the other kinds, but she's not specifying which. I don't think that's fair that she can say that at any particular time, and then the mayor can't say what he wants to defend his right to vote.
One thing I can answer you is, I cannot comment on this subject.
Yes.
That's
I
one
under-
thing I know. How
Okay.
about that?
Yes.
Thank you for your
Thank
comments,
you.
Lisa. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Lisa.
All right,
And we have Marilyn Vogler.
all right.
Hi, Marilyn Vogler, 420 East Poplar. I want to start by saying thank you to whoever it was that arranged for gravel to be put in the potholes on East Poplar Drive, East Poplar Street. I really appreciate it.
That was Clint.
Thank you, then. I'm here because garbage is back on the agenda today. And it's a little difficult to know exactly what might be involved, even though I went and read what was in the packet, except that there is an increase of the city's solid waste tax to 41.9% that's in the offing. I am assured, however, that my bill will stay the same. In this, I'm a little bit disappointed because, as you know, I had urged that you allow the option of having garbage picked up less frequently for those of us who are conscientious about recycling and are purchasing, but you didn't see fit to do that. However that may be, my bottom line concern is that I receive an itemized bill from Mason County Garbage. And that's where I began this sojourn a long time ago. I want to know on my bill how much in dollars and cents is going to the city, and how much in dollars and cents is going to the state. And I want to know exactly what the service charge is. What is the basic charge for collecting my garbage without embedded or hidden or included taxes? And this is important because it's this service charge that should be the basis of my January increase that's part of the contract. It needs to be clear what amount is going to be increased by whatever percentage is decided on. And when you speak about it, I would also like clarification of what I believe to be true, but I'm not sure, that when this tax is sent to the city, it will go into the general fund rather than one of the utility funds separately. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for your comments. All right, we're entering into the business agenda part of our meeting. And the first item is going to be a kind of a little emergency item. And we're going to let our Public Works Director, Craig Gregory, talk to us about some pumps.
Thanks, Mayor, Commissioners. Recently, we have had a couple of return-activated sludge pumps go out down at the main plant. And what these pumps do is once the sludge has been treated through the headworks and get down to the clarifiers, it is pumped back up to the top of the headworks again, whatever settles out in the clarifiers. And what that does is reduces the amount of solids that we have going through for treatment before it is just discharged. And both of them have gone out, one most recently just this month, one that had gone out about a year ago that we were not aware of, our SCADA system, which is our electronic awareness system that tells us when things go out at the plant electronically. That malfunctioned also, so we were not aware that one of them was out. So until we went and actually saw that the other one was out, we found that both of them were out. And now this isn't something that is just sitting on the shelf that we can purchase. They're about 5 to 6 weeks out. So right now, we have set up a manual bypass that would need to be manned if we get high flows to pump that back up. It would be run through an emergency pump, but that would have to be manned. So at this point, we would like to declare this purchase an emergency and move forward with this purchase without going through the formal bid process. We have gotten 3 bids or 3 quotes, and we feel like we have picked the least expensive with the highest warranty. The 2 quotes that we got had a 1-year warranty. The one that we actually selected has a 5-year warranty, and it's actually cheaper than the other 2. So at this point, we are asking that you move forward with this purchase under an emergency.
Okay, so this is an action item. If anybody from the public wants to weigh in on this, this is your opportunity. At this point, I will ask my fellow commissioners if they have any input on this matter.
What's the question, what's the cost of those?
The cost total between the 2 is almost $36,000.
Okay.
But we do have insurance on both of
Right.
those pumps, and the deductible on each one would be $10,000. So the total cost to the city would be around $20,000 for the 2 pumps.
And that's coming out of the sewer utility fund.
That is correct.
Okay,
That will come out of general operations fund.
all right.
Okay, I did have a question. That amount of $20,000 seems to be below what usually is brought to the commission. Is,
The reason we're bringing it to the commission is to clarify or determine that it is an emergency purchase
Okay.
so that we don't have to go through the formal bid.
Okay.
And that is done through bringing it to the commission for your approval.
okay, I'm glad that we have money in the fund.
So at this point, I guess we concur that we're going to bypass the 3-touch rule. And at this point, we've asked for public comment. The next would be that we need a reading from our city clerk on this issue.
Yes, resolution number 1108-1017, a resolution of the City of Shelton, Washington, declaring an emergency for wastewater treatment plant return activated sludge pump, waiving formal competitive bidding.
All right, so I would request a motion at this time.
I move to declare the failure of the 2 RAS pumps an emergency by signing Resolution 1108-1017 and authorizing staff to move forward with the purchase.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Good work, thank you.
Mayor, can I mention one thing? I know
Sure.
Craig briefly mentioned that his team put together a manual bypass for the pump. I did want to point out that it was a little more involved than that, and thank Craig and his team for coming together before the big storm recently and making sure that there was no threat to the water quality that's leaving our wastewater treatment plant.
So explain what do you have to do manually?
We would just have to basically babysit the pump,
Just like sit there with a
keep
blanket,
fuel
a
in
pillow,
it.
and a lunch and watch it? Almost?
In a roundabout way, yes.
Okay.
It would be really just to make sure that it continues to run and that it has fuel.
Constant check-in on it?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
For a pump that wasn't there, so they put one in next to where the old one was.
good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next is item number 2, and this is an ordinance. And what we're going to do is have our same Public Works Director, Craig Gregory, talk to us about this.
Thank you again. A few weeks back, we brought forward a change to the transportation impact fee. We changed the capital improvement project list to include all of the projects that are on our 6-year CIP, which would increase the amount of the per trip charge back to the level before it was reduced in 2016. The one thing that we did hear from the commission that they would like us to take a look at was we had proposed to front load
or have the option to front-load that fee, and the commission had voiced a concern with that. We actually, after going back and looking at it, we found some legislation that actually prevents us from front-loading that fee. So really, this is just the basic report that we had a couple of weeks ago, and it does include also a revision to the expenditure time period from 6 years to 10 years. It was an error through Public Works that we found that had been missed in the past. It was an RCW that got changed quite a while ago to change that to a 10-year time frame for expending those funds. So at this point, we're just bringing that forward to get clarity and make that change to reflect the RCW of that 10-year period.
Any questions or comments?
Is this going to cost any extra anymore?
Extra to the customers?
Well, yeah.
It will. It's
Okay.
returning so by changing the CIP, it also changes the per trip charge back to what the commission approved a few weeks back with the permit fees. It was an increase of 20%, which a portion of that was the TIF fee that the commission voted to pass, which would return that traffic impact fee back to the full amount from before reduction in 2016.
Okay.
So we voted to do something. Are we changing what we voted to do?
This is what you voted to do. We are just making the change to reflect what you have already voted to do.
Any other questions or comments?
Nice catch on the opportunity to extend the time frame for using those fees.
That was our
Yeah.
staff that caught that and saw that error, so
Okay.
give that to the engineering staff.
Good job.
Good job.
Okay, it appears that we need a first reading at this time. So, Jamie, could you please do that for us?
Yes, ordinance number 1907-1017, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to the expenditure of the traffic impact fees and amending section 17.12.090 of the Shelton Municipal Code.
All right, and it appears we concur to place this on the action agenda item for November 6, 2017. Next is number 3, and this is still Mr. Craig Gregory to answer the questions about this next ordinance.
So, Mayor, Commissioners, we got direction from the three of you to take a look at our solid waste utility tax and find a way to extract that utility tax out of the base rate so that it is not being double taxed with our other city utility tax. So working with Mason County Garbage and also Kristen French, we feel like we have come up with a viable option to accomplish everything that you had asked. So to extract that out, and also what we also heard from the three of you was to find a way to lower the bill at the same time. So we think we've come up with an option to make that happen. So within your packet, there's a handout that basically shows what the utility bill would look like for a 65-gallon every other week charge. So originally, with the 26% being embedded into the base rate was $20.29, and the 5% city utility tax was $1.01, and the refuge state tax was 73 cents for a total of $22.03. And with this new structure, we would be pulling out that 26%, so the base rate would go down to $15.01 from $20.29. The city utility tax would be $6.29. The refuge tax actually was decreased by about 19 cents from 73 cents to 54, with the overall total bill reduction of 19 cents down from 22.03 to 21.84.
Any questions or comments for Craig Gregory about this?
No, I don't.
Okay, so if we have no questions or comments, let's take a look and see, is there anything for Jamie to read on this one? There is. All right, would you please do that?
Ordinance number 1906-1017, an ordinance of the City of Shelton, Washington relating to the solid waste utility tax rate, amending section 3.51.010 of the Shelton Municipal Code and establishing an effective date.
And it appears we concur to place this on the action item for November 6, 2017.
Yes.
So, even though it's not an action item, once in a while I get bored, and so I kind of want to reach for something. All right, next number of these items is about the consulting on the C Street landfill upgrade and the contract change. And I will say that this is one of the things that, you can stay standing if you want there, Logan, I won't be long, where this commission has really came together and we really addressed something that the citizens were concerned about, and we worked together on moving forward to address the issue of the C Street landfill. And so it's one of those things that sometimes the things we disagree gets a lot more highlights than the ones we do agree. This is something that we were unanimous about, and so I will let you at this time talk to us about this consulting C Street aspect.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'd like to point out before I start the update that even though it's not an action item, we're required to take public comment after the update. And then I'll also bring forward the proposed contract change. So to give an update on what we've done so far, we hired a consultant, Aspect Consulting, to put together a remedial investigation work plan, or an RI work plan. The work plan was approved by DOE, and they began working. So far they have completed topographic and boundary surveys, geophysical surveys to determine the extent of waste, how deep, and the lateral extent also. And they've also collected and analyzed soil samples from the surface and just below the surface, and had those tested. That is where we are up to this point. The Department of Ecology, like most state agencies, is having trouble with the capital budget not being passed. And to move forward with the scheduled next tasks, it would take us beyond our budget. So we went to DOE and requested more money, and they said they can't while there's no capital budget. But they said they did have money set aside for us if we would just go ahead and do it on our own dime. We asked for a guarantee that we would be repaid for that, and they couldn't give it to us. So we negotiated with them, and with Aspect, the DOE, and us, we all agreed to modify past 7.4 to split it into 7.4A and 7.4B, and we included portions of later tasks, big portions, into 7.4A so that we could expend our remaining budget and keep working without going over and having to just start spending our own money with no grant funding. So that is what the contract change lays out. Basically, what they will do in 7.4A is drill 4 groundwater monitoring wells. They will test those wells at 4 different locations in the landfill, and they will evaluate that, basically to see if contaminants have reached groundwater. That will take almost all of the remaining budget, about $110,775. And by the time that that's done, hopefully a capital budget will have been passed, and we will have access to more Department of Ecology grant money.
Nice report. Thank you. It was very clear. I like when you speak in like human terms. You don't use all those fancy words like Craig Gregory does. You know? throwing us off track with all these things, but I'm excited. I think you're doing a great job on looking for options. I was just kidding. You do okay too. So personally, I think it's good that we're moving forward on it. I don't feel like taking a pause, and so I don't have any problem with supporting this. But
I do not either.
I think we made that commitment, and so one way or another, this has to be cleaned up.
all right, that was clean and simple. So do you need to read more on this one? No, not this
We
one.
do need to take public comment, though.
Oh, because this is an action item?
It's not an action
not an
item,
No.
but it is a requirement of
Okay.
the consent decree.
Then before we all make our final decision, let's see if there's someone in the public that wants to say anything about this. If they do, now would be the opportunity to step up. And so it appears that we're okay on this. And so at this point, I guess we can concur to place this on the action item agenda for November 6, 2017.
Mayor, I just want to make one clarification.
Sure.
We're not asking for public comment on the change order. We're actually wanting public comment on the actual C Street update portion. So I just want to make that clear.
Wasn't clear to me, but
Yeah,
thank you.
That's why I wanted to make that point of clarification.
Just C
Through the agreement, we have to take public comment on the update portion. So I know we kind of melded those two together, so we definitely need to have comment on the update portion.
I stand corrected, and so if anyone would like to talk about what he just said, this is the opportunity, and I still think we're probably okay. So,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Item number 5, Mr. Ryan Wheaton is going to talk to us about a water rate update.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We have Craig and Noel here to provide any other insight, but what you see in front of you is what was presented last week from our consultant at the FCS Group. So we brought back to you the two options that she presented in addition to the current approved water rate plan. So on your briefing packet, you have 3 options listed for water. And the first option is the current policy, which is in 2018, there's a planned 4% increase, and then there's no decision made from 2019 forward. Option 2, which you will see in the packet from the FCS Group on page 11. Option 2 is to increase the ability to fund future capital improvements. And this calls for 10% annual increases through 2021, with 3% annual increases in 2022 and 23. Option 3 is on page 12 in your packet, and this calls for the same 10% annual increases through 2021, and then 6% annual increases in both 2022 and 2023. The difference there is just your willingness to take on debt versus saving up money to pay for that infrastructure. Those are the 3 options that were presented, and like I said, one of them is the current policy that's been brought forward based off of the, I guess, probably 3 or so hours of information that you got last week. So with that, we can answer any questions that you have about what the potential ramifications are for these questions, if you have them now.
All right, questions or comments?
No, I don't have any.
So I'm looking at option 1. I just want to make sure that I understand this. Our current approved water rate plan is the one that was adopted a number of years ago. That does not include the 1-year freeze that we did last year?
Correct, and it
Okay.
does not include the updated capital improvement plan.
Okay.
So we brought forward some new infrastructure repairs. And you also, I should have mentioned this, the last page that you see in this packet is the capital improvement plan that we brought forward a couple months ago and was approved by you for water.
Okay. Is staff recommending one of these options?
We don't have a recommendation at this point. If the 3 of you would like us to bring forward one next week, we can certainly do that.
Okay, because we had opportunity to sit through 2 presentations last week, and I have to confess it's kind of overwhelming, even after sitting through that. Looking at it, there was definitely a it definitely made sense to me to increase the ability to fund future capital improvements. And quite honestly, nobody likes to look at increases in rates. So I'm looking at the one for less future debt, which is page 12.
Page 12.
And that would start immediately with a 10% rate hike for water and carry that on for 4 years, and then 2 years of 6%. And then I'm assuming we would look at a new rate structure, new updated rate structure.
Hey, Craig, do you know the date that we have to do a new water comp plan?
I don't, especially with this new update that we just had. I would think we would certainly want to sometime in years 4 or 5, looking forward to that year 6 when this actually ends.
And on both 11 and 12, you can see that the black dashed line, that's the current rate. So just to give an indication of where that is, the main difference between the options on pages 11 and 12 really is how much, if you're building the same infrastructure, how much debt would you incur versus how much would you be able to pay out of pocket?
Okay.
But all three options, it looks like there's an increase for 2018 on all three options. Just one's 4%, one's 10, and then one is still 10.
And this is just the water one.
This is just water, yeah.
Right.
So so even option one has a 4% increase?
Option 1 has already been approved. If you guys do nothing at this point, option 1 will go into effect.
Okay.
And so what are the ramifications as far as, for me, it seems like to do this every year and look at this every year costs a lot of staff time, and it keeps, it's not real predictable if we look at this every year. And is that what I'm reading, is that we would go up? In 2018, there would be a 4% increase, and then in 2019, we would have to be looking at this again?
I'm not sure what the decision was years ago when the water rate model was adopted, but my guess is that the plan back then was that we would have re-looked at this about now anyway, because there's
Okay.
no plan after 2018 for where the rates fall.
Okay, okay.
But certainly, when we talked with the FCS group after their presentation with you, that was one of the things that they impressed, is that it's much easier to predict a half a decade or so. When you look at the capital improvement plans that were just approved, they're more comfortable projecting what that revenue looks like when they compare those numbers over a little bit longer term.
Okay, so it's important that we had done that work ahead of time.
We wouldn't have been comfortable giving you a recommendation
Okay.
without it.
Okay.
This is, a fairly smaller amount of money than like the sewer's, a little bit bigger.
Much smaller, yeah.
Much smaller, but it still increases, and we had already approved a 4% one. And again, what happens is, as the city is doing such an unbelievably successful job in grants and things like that, that sometimes that maybe, we don't necessarily have to project 10% increases if we have some victories in our near future. It looks like, according to this, everything's fine. We're still below the black line there. It looks like we actually made a little dip, unless I'm mistaken on that one. So, I don't know. I'm leaning towards the 4% for 1 year, and then if we have to adjust it. But coming back with a recommendation from you guys is fine with me.
I'd like to see that.
Okay, so at this point, why don't we just, and we're not under a time constraint on this, are we?
We're
For
gonna-
like a week or so?
No, not for the next week. We just need to do it in
Okay.
conjunction with NOLA's budget work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Tracy had a good idea to bring this back and to have a staff recommendation on that. So why don't we do that?
Yep,
Okay.
sounds good.
Okay? Thank you.
When you bring back a recommendation, it will refer to the capital projects that we're looking at as well, as far as timelines, and can we have something that really fits together so that we can see what we have indicated will need to be done and where our funding sources will be in conjunction with the time that those are built. with the different options.
You've got that on your back.
Yeah,
Okay.
in here, the
Okay.
timeline's there.
Okay.
The only thing that's not here, and the mayor pointed out, is that there's no projection that we're going to get grant money or capital budget appropriations. That's
Okay.
something that we're not comfortable saying we'll get unless we actually have it.
That's right.
That's a good idea. Okay, okay, thank you.
All right, so we don't have to do anything on that item. I guess it's going to bring something back. And now we're into the sewer rate update.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Same thing here. We ended up splitting up the water and sewer discussion because eventually you'll need to vote on each of them separately, so we thought it would just be cleaner just to start now with separate conversations. So again, you have a briefing sheet and then the sewer presentation and report that was brought forward by FCS Group last time. I'll go through option one, which is the current approval, or excuse me, the current approved plan, and then the other options that were presented last week. First option is the current plan, which is a 5% increase annually through 2020. And then at that point, the last 3 years of the 6-year period, there is no plan for those rates. We'd have to look at those at 2021. Option two, which is on page 10, and that is the dotted line, is to freeze sewer rates at the current rate. And there would be no change over the next 6 years, but you can see where that fits there. And then one important note there is that we would not likely be able to complete the capital improvement plan that was approved a few weeks ago. Option three is on page 10. It's the solid line. And this would be to decrease the rate and then increase in subsequent years. So what's presented to you in that graph in the solid line is an 11% potential decrease in 2018, back to an 8% increase the following year, 4.5% increase in 2020, and then no increase in the subsequent 3 years. One thing to point out, and Craig can touch on this in a minute, is that circle that was included there. This potential reduction assumes quite a bit. It assumes fully funding Basin 3 and then paying in large part for the work in the sewer department on that project from that grant funding. So that does involve a substantial risk for that portion and brings up an issue for next year. Option three is, excuse me, this should be option four.
Yes.
Option four, and then we'll get to five. So the second option three, or option four, is to decrease the rate and then again increase in subsequent years. And this is just a smaller version of what you see in the previous option. So on page 11, that solid line suggests the potential for a 3.5% decrease, a 7.5% increase in 2019 and 20, and then 4% increases through 2023. And the final option that was presented by the FCS group was their look at decreasing the rate 20%. This would essentially be a 20% decrease next year, and then they presented a flat rate for the next 5 years. And the big concern here is that we'd have to find initially $450,000, but up to $700,000 out of that operations and maintenance budget. So those are the 5 options that we talked about last week, including the first one, which is the maintenance of the current policy that's been adopted. And again, if you do nothing at this point, option number 1 goes into effect.
And option, let's see, option number 1.
So can we get a comments, report back from the staff on this one also, like the
Yeah.
water?
We can do that.
We can do that.
I have a couple of questions on this. I'm looking at the CIP, which is that the engineer's estimate? I don't remember what that is, CIP.
These are the capital improvement plan projects.
Okay,
So on
okay.
the original side, these are all things that were included the last time you
Okay.
updated this.
Okay.
And then what is on the right is what Craig and his team went through and adjusted. So you have some new projects on there. A lot of them have been removed. And the big change here is that we reduced what we're looking at between now and 2032 from $51 million down to just over $3 million in those projects.
Okay. And then on Basin 3, I know that we're set to go out to bid in late winter. Is that correct?
Correct.
on that. So I also know that some of our money is tied up in the capital budget, in the,
$3 million that we think we're going to get for direct appropriations is tied up within the capital budget. That is correct.
so how much of Basin 3 funding do we actually have that we can count on in grants?
Right now, you've got a $1.9 million revolving fund grant through DOE.
Okay,
And you've also got a $1.455 million direct appropriation grant that is available. So you've got roughly about 3.3 million.
and so that's money in the bank. That
Correct.
portion of it is money in the bank. Because I'm looking at projects that are happening now, it seems like projects are coming in way over bid, that the cost, I guess it's all of the building happening right now. So I'm concerned, I'm concerned about the balance of what we have between the grant funding and the money above what we will be getting for the grant and the unknown. As far as, we don't know exactly. There's no predictability, really, for sure, in what the estimates are going to come in for the bids.
Right now, we've estimated that that project will come in somewhere in the $6.5 to $7.5 million range. That is a guess at this point, not knowing what the bid market will look like. And that does not include, that is just the sewer project. That does not include any of the road paving at this point. And I know that's been a priority for some on the commission to get those roads paved in that area.
Mm-hmm.
But that estimate does not include any of the repaving of those roadways.
Okay, so I guess I'm looking at these projections that show that our rates, the proposed rates would be sufficient to meet those costs into the future. Is there a probability, or is there a chance that as the projects go forward and we don't get more grant money, what do we do in that case?
I think maybe NOLA can maybe answer that a little better, but there is a distinct possibility that we may need to utilize a good portion of that loan that we also have with the DOE grant that's tied to it. So maybe NOLA can answer that long-term debt
Could I ask
question.
one question before? I was adding, we got 3.5 million. What about the 1.3 million with the intertie money?
That's in the capital
It's
budget.
tied up in the capital budget.
Oh, that one is?
Yes,
Okay, so that 3 mil had that included in there.
that's
Yeah, that's still in the capital
Correct.
budget.
Right, so the 3 mil includes the 1.3.
it's 1.455.
Right, and then whatever other, so total left is just the 3 mil.
It's tied up in the
Included,
capital
right.
budget.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's roughly 3 million. It's two appropriations that are 1.455 million each. So you're just short of 3 million.
Sorry for the interruption.
Well, I wasn't finished yet. So my other question related to that is, and the consultant spent a bit of time on it about the dip, the dip on page 10 in 2018 that was based on those grant dollars coming in. So I'm concerned that we can't really count on this. Is that correct?
I wouldn't count on that at this point. That was, I think, maybe a nothing against Courtney Black and the FCS group that they prepared this. I know Nola and I had some conversations right before they did their presentation. It may have been a miscommunication from myself to them, and the way that we address the indirect cost for the utilities and also our manpower. So what she was building into that was thinking that the project would pick up the indirect costs for next year, which ended up being somewhere in the $350,000 to $400,000 range. But I don't think that is the case. If we do pick that up through the project, it's likely that we will have to expend more of the loan to pay for that portion, which, yeah, may give you a slight dip in 2018, but then is going to just incur more debt, long-term debt in the future. So it's really, what would the commission be comfortable with, long-term debt or continuing to fund that out of the utility?
Okay.
And these questions are really going to be up to you about what you're comfortable with, because as Craig mentioned, we're hoping that this thing comes in as cheap as possible to build an appropriate basin. But if it doesn't turn out that way, and also, like you said, we are hopeful that we get that money out of the state budget, and we think that the capital budget will go through eventually. We also thought we would be able to give you an answer before 2018 as to what the 2017 capital improvement, or excuse me, the capital budget was going to look like. But we don't want to tell you that you've got that $3 million because we're still waiting on an actual answer from them, as is the entire state.
Okay, it's just difficult thinking of making decisions that will affect, 10 years down the road or 20 years down the road when we don't really know for sure what the numbers are. But I appreciate that. I appreciate knowing. So it looks like hope we'll just be keeping our fingers crossed that some more money comes in.
As we always are.
Yeah, and also that we get some good bids. But do you have a number of what the construction costs are going up? I know there is a engineer's estimate that is based, that construction
Increased percentage?
that they base the numbers on. Do you know what that is?
Courtney had it in the packet.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think construction costs, I want to say, was like 3%. I'd have to look through and find it, but it seems to me like that's what she had.
That's what I was
3%.
Built in
thinking.
was
Okay,
3%.
great, thank you.
I'm not sure that that's exactly accurate for this climate that we're in right now, because it seems to be getting very expensive.
Yeah.
But overall, I think that is the general basis is 3%.
Okay, thank you. I'm finished now.
All right, Commissioner McDowell, do you have some insight on this? You
Not-
said you wanted another study.
I want
or
I want to
recommendation.
get some feedback from the staff right now,
Okay.
at this point.
Well, I thought a lot about this because for the past 5 years in working with staff, literally beaten the path to get grant money. We've done an amazing job at securing substantial grant money. And I did it for one reason. One reason was to attempt to lower the sewer rates in the city. And we had, it's too bad that capital budget didn't go through last year, but it didn't. I believe it's going to go through this year, but there's no guarantee. But a lot of this is not guarantees, but what all these numbers and these projections do to us, lots of them make sense to us, but I look at the ratepayers and the citizens, and I have fought hard, just like everybody in this room, I think has fought really hard to attempt to lower those extreme sewer rates down. We have a little window of opportunity, according to the DIP, which it appears that we want to erase that dip at this point, but the dip looks pretty good because that's hard work that we went out and tried to get. So I think if I was going to attempt to do anything, see, I look at it from the standpoints of a ratepayer. When we came to them and said, oh gee, we need to raise your rates 39% because we got all these bills to pay, and we did that. And I went kicking and screaming, going, I don't want to do this. This is crazy. This is insane, raising it 39%. I don't want to do this, but I voted for it. I went along with it, okay? And then some of that money didn't get where it was supposed to go. Water under the bridge or over the bridge. But now that we worked hard, we've got some substantial grant money ahead of us that $10 a month doesn't seem like a whole lot of money. It really doesn't. And But I just know that I work for these people, and I want to do everything I can to actually fulfill a campaign promise, which is to attempt, to the best of my ability, to lower that rate. And so I would take the 11% hit. That would be my first choice. Second choice would take Plan B, which was a modified option 3 into option 4, it looks like. I would take the 3.5% decrease, and what I do, I go back and fight as hard as I can, along with my fellow commissioners and staff, to get more grant money and try and level out that playing field and bring our sewer rates down. So, to me, I would take that, and that I would go with that. The 20%, coming up with $700,000 so we don't have to fire any employees or anything, I would not go that way. I was shooting for trying to get something like that, but I would probably say my first option would be option 3, and then the second one would be the option 4, because we're going to be here to try and figure out how we're going to fund future things too. And the other deal is like saving for reserves, like reserving for future capital budget projects. I think that's a really great idea, but, and I think you should do that. But at some point, you got to look at the citizens said, I fought as hard as I could, but sorry, didn't work. We're going to jack it up 10% this year. I just, all that feels really uncomfortable to me. So my opinion, not based on staff's recommendation, is that I would like to see an 11% decrease, and if I had to go for a second option, I would probably go for the 3.5 decrease, which is at least attempting to do what I fought for. So that's my statement on that, but you're going to bring back a recommendation next week, right?
Did you say that you're completely ruling out option 4?
Yeah, I think that would be too big of a
five.
jump.
Or 5.
5, you meant 5.
Yeah, I meant 5. Well, we
It
changed the numbers
says-
because they were
Numbered.
numbered
No.
wrong.
Oh,
So the
okay.
20% decrease, sorry, folks, I don't think that's in the realm of possibility, but the 11% is, because that's what the graph says, and that's what I would do.
I would say that option 5 is off of the table for me, so as staff is doing their recommendation,
So
go
20%,
ahead and
that's-
take that one
Yeah,
out.
option 5 is off, so don't even look at that.
Sounds good. Anything else for the good of the order on this one?
Are there any other options that you both are willing to take off the table to make things a little more?
Maybe number 1, let's see, number 1, maintain the current 5% increase. I would not do that. Freeze it. I suppose that would be my third option. I mean, if we were
Well-
compromising on this stuff, but I just think of the people out there, especially low-income people. That's what I think about.
At this point, I'll come back, and I do have a little bit on it. After looking at it and reading about it and studying, I think that I would probably go with option 2 for 1 more year and see what kind of funding we bring in in 2018. Probably, anyway, that's where I stand right now.
Okay, I would not be in favor of that, so,
Freezing,
yeah.
okay.
All right, so you're going to bring back a recommendation?
Yes, we will.
Sounds good. Are we done with that one? Beat that horse to death? Okay. Number 7 is going to be our preliminary budget presentation by Nola von Newday.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We have been working on building a new budget model for the city. We started on that in the summer, and we believe at this point we have our model in place and fully functional. And I want to, before I get into the budget details, just shout out a thank you to the finance staff, especially Megan Croson, who's helped quite a lot in pulling all the information together to put together a preliminary budget. First, just a highlight, we have all of our 2016 finance reports now ready to produce in final form rather than draft form. We've been able to work through all of the issues in 2016 and get those sorted out. So we're ready to produce those. We're also ready to produce 2017 year-to-date financials through September. So we have verified all that information. We'll be generating and publishing those reports later this week. That's one of the building blocks of building an accurate budget, so that is done. At this stage, all of the staff budget requests have been included in the 2018 proposed budget, and over the next 2 weeks, the leadership team will be meeting this week and next week to work through all the budget requests based on the priorities that the commission provided to us at the August budget retreat. And just a reminder, those priorities were, number 1 was public safety, number 2 was economic development, number 3 was technology upgrades, and number 4 was the downtown visioning plan. So we'll be focusing on that and working our way through all the budget requests. So understand when you look at the budget document as it's presented today, it is still preliminary, and we will be working toward balancing it over the next 2 weeks. So that's why when you look at ending cash balances for 18, they look low. That's because we still have all of the requests in the bucket. We will be sifting through those and working our way through that. I wanted to talk a little bit about where we're at with property tax revenue and how that affects the budget. The overall assessed valuation of existing property in the city has increased approximately 8% over the last year. Because the tax limitations that are in place only allow for a 1% increase without voter approval over the prior year's property taxes, that drives the virtual rate per $1,000 of assessed value down. In 2017, we were able to collect at our maximum cap of roughly $3.20 per $1,000 of assessed value. Because the property values have increased about 8% and we're only allowed to increase taxes, and this is on existing property, not new construction. Because we can only increase property taxes by 1%, what happens is that drives the rate per $1,000 of assessed value down. So instead of, in 2018, being at our cap of $3.20, it's going to drive that virtual rate down to roughly $3.09 per $1,000 of assessed value. So just understand how those components affect one another. Right now, it looks like, according to the Mason County Assessor, there's approximately $48 million of new construction. And the way the taxes are calculated on new construction is we're able to use last year's rate. So when we look at that $48 million, we calculate that at the 2017 rate of $3.20. So that is going to generate about $154,000 in additional property tax revenue. A good chunk of that is Sierra Pacific. So understand that when we say there's $48 million of new construction in the city, that's not because of a lot of residential growth. It's mainly larger taxing properties.
And is that new construction or is that for
That's new
upgrades?
construction.
Okay.
It's new construction.
Okay.
Right. In the near horizon, we're going to be seeing some school projects and hospital projects, and that will affect the new construction property tax revenue in the next few years. So you'll be seeing that on the horizon coming up. We're also eligible for about a $35,000 administrative tax refund levy. And what that is when property values get reassessed, sometimes a value can go down. Then the assessor goes back and they reevaluate the entire assessed value of the entire city. And that can create a small administrative refund levy for entities sometimes. Some years there's some and some years there's not. This year we have about a $35,000 administrative refund levy. And you can only get that levy if you're below your cap.
Okay.
And we are, so we should be able to apply for that and get it. As far as other taxes, we are still verifying some projected tax revenue information for sales tax and other types of tax from the Department of Revenue and from the Assessor's Office, and we'll be feeding that information into the budget over the next couple of weeks. We will be certifying the levy in November because we're required to take the levy certification documents to the county by the end of November, but your final approval date for your budget is likely going to be the first or second meeting of December. Okay, so it's kind of a process we have to go through. We certify the levy, and then you'll adopt your budget. Talking about the debt situation, I wanted to give you an update on that because that affects the budget. Right now, debt service costs for 2018 are currently calculated at just shy of $3 million. It's $2,997,72.34. Interest is just over $1 million. It's $1,014,122.05, and the principal on debt is $1,976,650.29. We did just meet with the state auditors this afternoon, right before this meeting. We met with them for our exit conference for the audit they just finished for 2015 and for accountability audit for 2016. And we were able to confirm with them that our financial condition remains stable and that all loan payments are being included in the budgeting process, and we do have appropriate funds set aside for debt payments. So that is good. Financial condition continues to be stable, and we do have, I did make sure, I triple checked that to make sure we had appropriately accounted for all of the debts that we have and all of the scheduled payments and which funds they're coming from, and making sure that that's there. So that has been addressed, so we're comfortable with that. Again, the next step at this point is the leadership team will be working through all of the budget requests with using a benchmark as determining priorities there. We're going to be looking at the public safety, economic development, the technology upgrades, and the downtown visioning plan. And we have scheduled at this point the first public hearing on the budget for next Monday. So at that point, I will stop and see if you have any questions so far.
I have a question.
Sure.
So it's really good news to hear that our financial condition is stable, and that means that we have adequate reserves and we make our bills on time and everything. So my question is, we've heard often public statements that we were or we are at the edge of bankruptcy. Is that an accurate statement?
I have not heard that from the auditors at all. What I've heard from the auditors as of this afternoon was that our financial condition continues to be stable.
Okay. So if there, excuse
Okay,
me.
yeah, but that comment was my comment, but I can answer that when you're finished, okay?
Oh, of course.
Those are my facts.
Oh, well, okay, well, that's what I'm trying to
Sure.
find
So
out if those are
when you're
facts.
done, I can answer
So, so I'm thinking that if we ever were in such dire economic straits, we wouldn't have been passing the state audits year after year.
That is correct. One of the things the state auditor's office looks at is financial condition, and if they see that there is a trend of a deteriorating financial condition, they will address that in their audit. That's one of the requirements that they look very closely at.
Okay, so we've been in good shape, so that is not an accurate statement. Thank you.
The actual statement was 2 years ago. It wasn't about today's financial picture, and I'm the one that said that. And I got that information from not current staff, but I got that information from past staff. And we were faced, when the mills were closing down, we didn't have any immediate plans for Sahara Pacific to come into town. That the comments were made, if Sahara Pacific had not come into town, that we were on the edge of bankruptcy. Now, I'm just telling you what I heard, and I know there are other people that heard that same thing. So, I wasn't talking about today. I was talking about 2 years ago. Had Sahara Pacific not come into town at that moment, and we were 50 million in debt, growing to wherever certain people wanted to push us, that's where I got that information.
So let's just, for the sake, because we have on here that our priorities, on here, if I can find them.
You might not see them in that particular document.
Oh, here,
there they are on your second
public
page.
safety, economic development, technology utilization, upgrades in the vision plan. And I had heard that over the years, but I had never heard staff say it. And I realized that the mayor had said 2 years ago we were on the verge of bankruptcy. And so that prompted my question about would we have been passing audits all of this time if we were indeed on the verge of bankruptcy?
I can't comment on the issue of
who said
what about
Yeah,
bankruptcy.
I understand.
I can only share with you what I'm seeing in the financial records and what the state auditor has seen as a result of their audit. The exit conference that we had today was for auditing the financials for 2015, and those are stable.
Okay. So I just...
And continuing forward, as part of their auditing process, they look at the particular year they're auditing, but they also look forward to see where we are today, and what they're seeing is stable.
Okay, and the tie into that, of course I had that question, is that I think we would be able to far better market our community for the things that are our priorities, including economic development, if we projected confidence in our stability, in our economic being, which I would appreciate that. So thank you for answering the question.
All right, moving right along. This is better than sitting around watching TV all day long, I'll have to guarantee you that. All right, we have, it looks like our next thing is going to be again from NOLA. Item number 8.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is just a detail of updating signatories. We have a couple of investment accounts. One of those is through the local government investment pool. And the last time that the resolution authorizing signatories on that, we call it the LGIP. The last time that was updated was several years ago with Dave O'Leary and Kathy Byerly and Thomas Donnelly as the authorized individuals. So this is just a housekeeping detail to update the authorized signatories on the LGIP to Ryan Wheaton, City Manager, and to myself as Finance Director. And we are requesting that resolution number 1109-1017 be placed on the action agenda for Monday, November 6th, 2017.
Could you tell the people that are listening what LGIP stands for?
Local Government Investment Pool.
Okay.
It's
Thank
an
you.
investment grouping of governmental entities.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I don't think any of us have a problem for this. Any problem on placing this on the action agenda?
Seems like it is far more efficient, so yes.
Okay, so we concur to do that. Now, item number 9, it's been a long meeting today. Thank you for hanging in with us, folks. And it appears Vicki Look is going to talk to us.
I am.
Because
Good
you
afternoon.
came up to the table.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. It came to my attention that we had been not completely detailing the actions of some of our regular meetings and special meetings when it was concerning executive sessions. We have an obligation when we have an executive session to call it, give you the purpose of the meeting, tell you what time it's going to start, and how long we anticipate that it will last. In addition, we also need to let you know who is going to be invited to sit in on that executive session. There are definite rules that are governed by the Open Public Meetings Act. And so what we did is we went back and found all of the executive sessions that we had held since last December through present, and we have amended those meeting minutes to include the details of the executive sessions that were held. They're not minutes. We don't talk in detail about what was discussed during those executive sessions, but as I mentioned, we do detail the other information as required by the Open Public Meetings Act. So what I've done is brought 6 sets of minutes, some of them amended and some of them created as special meeting minutes. And we've asked that you put it on the consent agenda for November 6th. And I can answer any questions if you have
And
any.
that's what this information here is?
It is. They're
Okay.
amended minutes to include the details of the executive sessions.
Okay.
Anybody have questions?
I have no questions. Thank
I
you.
would just comment that, Vicki, thank you very much for your help in all of these little rules and things that we need to do. It's sometimes hard to obey them all the time, but I consider you to be a wealth of institutional knowledge.
Well, thank you.
So it appears we concur to put this item on the action agenda for November 6th, 2017. And now we're moving into any city manager reports.
Just one thing, Mayor and Commissioners, we were going to bring the fee schedule update forward today. It's taken a little bit more time. We're, again, trying to get a comprehensive look, so all of our departments are finishing up their review of that fee schedule. We already have the building permit fees, as you three decided that about a month or two ago. So that portion's done, but next week we're going to bring forward a comprehensive update that hopefully gets those other components, the special event permits and some of the things that the police deal with, into line with closer but not quite meeting all the costs, but you'll see that next week.
Thank you very much. Our next meeting will be November 6th, 2017 at 6 p.m. here in the Civic Center. This meeting is adjourned.
I know. Hey, I wonder who puts
Vicki, you want to
these.
get